Imagine standing outside a massive, modern complex in the heart of Nova City, an industry hub where producers, artists, and executives converge to shape the future of music. On this particular morning, an overcast sky blankets the sleek, steel and glass building of AzureSound Records headquarters. The entrance buzzes with ambition, individuals hurry by with portfolios tucked beneath their arms, managers speak in hushed yet urgent tones, and aspiring creators look on with nervous hope. However, behind this facade of innovation lurks a system of favoritism, one that threatens to undermine the very idea of fairness and talent. Snoop Dogg arrives in front of AzureSound Records dressed in ordinary streetwear, a dark hoodie pulled over his brow, a simple cap keeping his hair under wraps, and a pair of worn sneakers. There is no flashy entourage trailing him today. This is a deliberate choice. He hopes to blend in as just another artist seeking a fair hearing, another creative soul hoping for a contract that recognizes his worth. Despite the cloudy atmosphere overhead, a quiet determination radiates from him. Inside the soaring lobby, the scene is at once exhilarating and intimidating. Large LED screens project music videos and artist interviews, plush sofas flank marble-top coffee tables where visitors sip artisanal lattes. From one corner, an assistant gestures toward a row of self-check-in kiosks. From another, a cluster of well-dressed executives murmurs about sales figures, potential mergers, and the next big thing in the industry. Business deals form and dissolve in real time, underscored by the faint hum of background beats echoing through the sound system. Snoop Dogg recalls his last visit to AzureSound. Back then, he was an up-and-coming talent attending a showcase, hoping to get noticed in a world that often preferred artists who fit a particular mold, glossy, uniform, and polished. Today, however, things are different. He has built his reputation. He is here to sign a contract that should validate his talents, but rumors have circulated that not everyone in AzureSound is eager to open its doors to him. He can feel the residual tension in the air as he steps forward. Approaching the main reception desk, Snoop hands over a neatly organized file of paperwork, proof of his readiness and seriousness about the deal. The manager on duty, David Cole, is a middle-aged man with impeccably styled hair and a tailored suit. He schemes the documents with an air of distant indifference, barely glancing up at the hooded figure before him. "Name?" Cole asks, his voice clipped. "Snoop Dogg," replies the artist calmly, his confidence drawn from years spent commanding stages and audiences. He notices a barely perceptible pause in Cole's response, a hesitation that goes on just a beat too long. An uneasy feeling nudges at Snoop's gut. With a dismissive motion of his manicured hand, David Cole indicates a row of sleek, metal seats. "Please wait over there," he says curtly. "They'll call you when it's time." Nodding politely, Snoop collects his paperwork and heads to the seating area, where a few others already look anxious, waiting to hear news of their futures. Some are dressed in refined suits and neat dresses, exuding the exact kind of tidy image the industry loves to uphold. Others resemble Snoop, more casually dressed, armed with raw passion, hoping their music might speak for itself. Yet from his vantage point, he notices a pattern: certain people, those who look a bit too street, wait much longer. Time stretches onward. In the corner of the lobby, a businesslike man in a navy blazer strides straight to a meeting room without so much as a glance at the desk apparently cleared for immediate entry. A few minutes later, a poised woman in a custom-tailored outfit checks in with a bright smile and is ushered inside almost instantly. Snoop's eyes flicker with frustration. His watch tells him that he has already been waiting far longer than what might be considered a routine delay. He drums his fingers on the handle of his briefcase. The memory of past rejections stings at the edge of his mind. His attire, far from being flashy, seems to have become an excuse for the powers that be to delay his progress. A fellow artist, an older man with lines of experience etched on his face, leans over to Snoop. "You here to get a contract signed?" he asks quietly. Snoop nods, and the elder's expression shifts to one of understanding. Stay calm, the man murmurs. Ain't the first time folks like us have had to wait. Moments later, a confident woman arrives at the reception desk. She, too, is told to head to the metal benches and wait. Snoop can feel the tension in his chest tightening. Every second underscores the notion that certain forces within the building are stalling him, either for reasons of prejudice or because he does not fit their carefully curated ideal. Just then, the double doors at the far end of the corridor swing open. Emerging from them is Judge Harper Ellis, a striking figure in a sharply tailored black suit. Renowned for her unflinching stance on fairness in contractual disputes, Judge Ellis seems to command the entire room's attention with each purposeful step. When her penetrating gaze lands on Snoop, he feels a jolt of anticipation. "Mr. Dogg," she addresses him, her voice firm. "Why are you still out here waiting?" Rising to his feet, Snoop clears his throat. "I was told to wait until called, ma'am." The lobby falls silent. David Cole, now mildly flustered, flips through a stack of papers on his desk. "Protocol, Your Honor," he mutters, refusing to meet Snoop's eyes. "We need more time to process his paperwork." Snoop steels himself. "It's interesting," he replies, measured but resolute, "that the gentleman in the navy blazer didn't seem to require any protocol checks." Cole's eyes lock on Snoop, a flicker of arrogance flitting across his features. "You need to calm down, sir," he says. "This process takes time." Before the situation can escalate, Judge Ellis intervenes. "Manager Cole," she says sharply, "kindly explain why Mr. Dogg's paperwork is not processed, while I witnessed multiple individuals pass through with minimal delay." Cole hesitates. "It must be an oversight, Judge," he sputters. "A mix-up with the system." A murmur ripples among the people seated in the lobby. All eyes turn to Snoop. Some stare in sympathy, some in mild curiosity, still others remain indifferent, too engrossed in their own business. Snoop grips his briefcase, anger flaring inside. Being sidelined like this rekindles memories of every time someone doubted him based on superficial judgments. Judge Ellis gestures for him to follow. "Come, Mr. Dogg," she commands gently. "We'll settle this inside." Snoop's heart thuds as he steps away from the benches, trailing behind the judge. When they pass through the double doors into the contract negotiation room, the change is abrupt. Gone is the chaotic energy of the lobby. Here, the atmosphere is refined, cushioned chairs arranged around a glossy wooden table, subdued conversations among executives, and the tangible sense of power that can determine the course of an artist's destiny. Taking her seat at the head of the table, Judge Ellis flips a small microphone on. "We are about to commence the signing," she announces, her gaze fixed on Snoop, "but first, we must address a critical matter." Snoop's attorney, a poised, experienced figure in a dark suit, leans in close. "We're ready," he whispers. "We'll make it official today, no matter what they throw at us." Snoop nods, steeling himself for the confrontation he senses is coming. Judge Ellis clears her throat. "Mr. Dogg, you claim you were left waiting outside despite a scheduled appointment and an approved file. Is that correct?" Snoop exhales, voice steady with resolve. "Yes, Your Honor, that is correct." A ripple of movement stirs around the room. Executives exchange anxious glances. Seated at the far side, representing Zenith Partners, a rival music conglomerate, are a handful of individuals in immaculate suits. Their leader, Mark Zenith, meets Snoop's gaze with a cool, nearly arrogant composure, though a faint flicker of uncertainty glimmers in his eyes. Judge Ellis shifts her focus to Manager Cole, who is perched near the door. "Explain yourself, Mr. Cole," she demands. "Why was Mr. Dogg made to wait, when I see his documents are marked ready for signing?" Cole's expression falters. "It was an administrative snag, Your Honor." We had a heavy volume of contracts this morning, so some cases got shuffled. He speaks quickly, hoping to dismiss the matter as a logistical slip-up. But Judge Ellis's eyes narrow. A snag? I personally reviewed Mr. Dogg's paperwork. Nothing indicated it should be delayed. Were you following instructions to stall certain artists? For a moment, Cole seems at a loss. The hush in the room grows deafening. Then, with a trembling sigh, Cole admits, I was told by someone at Zenith Partners to, well, slow down the signing for Mr. Dogg's contract. They said it would help manage the schedule. The revelation drops like a thunderclap. Shocked gasps ripple around the table, and in the back, several staffers exchange startled whispers. Snoop feels his pulse spike. Every time he wondered if he was simply being paranoid is now put to rest. There was indeed a coordinated effort to sideline him. Judge Ellis's lips press into a tight line. Manager Cole, she says with an unmistakable edge to her tone, did you just admit to deliberately delaying Mr. Dogg under direction from an external party? Cole's Adam's apple bobs as he swallows hard. Yes, Your Honor, he concedes quietly. Mark Zenith, the chief representative of Zenith Partners, quickly rises from his seat, smoothing his lapel. Your Honor, he interjects, attempting a confident smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes, Zenith Partners knows nothing about any delay tactics. We respect every artist. Judge Ellis cuts him off with a curt gesture. I'll allow you to speak in due time, Mr. Zenith. For now, we have a statement under oath implicating Zenith Partners in misconduct. This is not a trivial matter. You would do well to tread carefully. A heavy silence descends. Snoop Dogg watches the swirl of emotions crossing every face in the room: shock, guilt, anger. Then a wave of something deeper washes over him: vindication. After years of struggling against the industry's reluctance to champion someone who refused to conform, here at last was proof that such discrimination was systematically practiced. Judge Ellis exhales slowly. I find this situation deeply disturbing, she states, her voice echoing off the sleek wooden walls. Deliberate obstruction aimed at preventing an artist from signing a contract is an affront to the very concept of fairness that we, as an industry, must uphold. Zenith tries to regain composure. Your Honor, a slight delay in timing is hardly catastrophic. It's business as usual. We can't sign every artist at the exact same hour. Business as usual. Judge Ellis's tone practically crackles with indignation. When it's specifically orchestrated to deter or disadvantage an artist, this goes beyond mere scheduling. This is intentional bias and I will not stand for it. The tension throughout the room is palpable. Even those not directly involved in the signing sense that something monumental is unfolding. The hush is broken only by the soft clicking of smartphones as a few people discreetly check messages. Snoop Dogg remains outwardly calm, though his heart is still racing with the revelation of how far some would go to sideline him. Judge Ellis draws in a breath, composing herself. Manager Cole, you are immediately placed on administrative leave pending further investigation by AzureSound's internal review board. Furthermore, I am obligated to file a formal complaint with the National Coalition of Arts and Entertainment Law regarding this blatant interference. Cole closes his eyes in resignation as a security officer appears at the edge of the room. The manager offers no resistance while being escorted out. A hush descends once more, this time laced with the knowledge that the industry's carefully kept secrets have been thrust into the open. Snoop's attorney leans over and whispers, "This has gotten bigger than any of us imagined. You've pulled the curtain back on something many suspected but couldn't prove." There's a weight to the attorney's words that resonates with Snoop. A single confrontation in a boardroom is revealing years of suppressed inequality, discrimination, and backdoor deals. Judge Ellis squares her shoulders. We'll proceed with the contract, she declares. Let it be known that AzureSound Records will not condone such practices. Every artist deserves an equal chance, free from sabotage. As Snoop moves to the table, he places his briefcase on the gleaming surface. A hush falls again, a collective intake of breath as the contract comes into view. With each pen stroke on the dotted line, Snoop feels a surge of pride. He is not just fighting for his career, but for the countless others who had suffered similar treatment. The ceremony concludes in an atmosphere that is both charged and triumphant. Executives from AzureSound shake Snoop's hand, while the representatives from Zenith Partners avoid eye contact. The tension in the air remains thick, but a sense of resolve also emerges, one that promises this day will echo far beyond these walls. Back in the corridor, Snoop Dogg pauses. The lobby that had once seemed so hostile is now eerily silent, as though it's holding its breath. He glances at the same row of seats where he was told to wait. A wave of memories washes over him, all the times he had been brushed aside, all the times people in power found ways to keep him waiting or bury his potential under needless layers of bureaucracy. But something changed today. For the first time, an authority figure, Judge Ellis, has publicly denounced these tactics in front of the entire industry. By the time Snoop steps out onto the street, the gray sky overhead seems less oppressive. Each step feels a bit lighter, too. The world around him remains the same hustle and bustle of Nova City, the same busy sidewalks, the same impatient taxi horns echoing through the streets. Yet he carries within him a renewed conviction that fairness is a right worth fighting for. In the following weeks, news outlets once slow to cover stories of injustice pick up the scandal at AzureSound. Talk shows and music panels discuss discrimination, inequality, and how favoritism shapes contract negotiations. More artists, emboldened by Snoop's confrontation, come forward with their own stories. Public discourse, once muted, grows louder by the day. Invitations for Snoop Dogg to speak at events pour in. At first, he's wary. He's a musician, not necessarily an activist. But in each meeting, he notices that his story resonates not just with fellow artists but also with aspiring professionals in all fields. They relate to feeling overlooked or minimized. They cheer when Snoop emphasizes the importance of pushing back, of refusing to let fear or complacency dictate the outcome. Simultaneously, an internal investigation at Zenith Partners reveals a deeply rooted pattern of discriminatory tactics aimed at artists who didn't fit their corporate image. Leadership within the conglomerate scrambles to enact public relations damage control. However, the scrutiny from regulators and the media proves unrelenting. Several high-ranking figures, including a couple of vice presidents, eventually resign under intense pressure. For Snoop Dogg, the ramifications extend far beyond a single contract. His name becomes entwined with calls for accountability. He learns of numerous emerging talents, musicians who had almost given up, believing the system would always block them. They reach out, thanking him for standing firm and giving them the courage to continue. Judge Harper Ellis, meanwhile, transforms into an emblem of impartiality in the music business. Event organizers invite her to speak about ethical standards and equitable treatment. She helps shape guidelines for a more transparent negotiation process, insisting that no artist should ever again be made to feel their style or background disqualifies them from fair treatment. AzureSound, eager to distance itself from scandal and align with progress, releases statements reaffirming its commitment to inclusion. They begin implementing internal diversity and fairness training, acknowledging that while one manager was singled out, the problem might run deeper. The ripple effect extends across the sector. Other record labels, alarmed by the unfolding drama, initiate their own audits and reforms. In the aftermath, Snoop Dogg's music takes on new depth. In his personal studio, a humble space where the walls are covered in graffiti art and accolades, he pours the emotional whirlwind of recent events into his latest tracks. Each verse channels the raw frustration of being sidelined and the heady surge of having that injustice laid bare. Before long, these songs capture the public imagination, becoming anthems for those who believe in both creativity and equity. Fans and fellow artists use social media to amplify Snoop's story. Hashtags calling for an overhaul of outdated practices trend online. A few high-profile musicians openly criticize the gatekeeper mentality entrenched in their industry. Others, even from the older guard, admit they had faced similar struggles covering it up as part of the game. Perhaps most significantly, educational initiatives spring up in response. Activists and educators weave Snoop's narrative into workshops that teach young people about integrity and the dangers of letting prejudice dictate policy. Community centers begin hosting fair play sessions aimed at upcoming artists, encouraging them to share experiences, unite, and demand transparency in every contract they negotiate. Local organizations soon partner with music academies to create better pathways for diverse voices. Talent transcends clothing, background, and connections, proclaims a giant billboard near Nova City's famous amphitheater. Underneath the slogan, an image of Snoop Dogg performing stands as a testament to resilience and hope. The events at AzureSound also change how journalists approach the music industry. Interviews with label representatives grow more probing, focusing not just on the music but on ethical considerations behind signings and promotions. Public demand for representation and fair policies intensifies, pushing more labels to re-examine their approach. At this point, Snoop Dogg finds himself at an unexpected crossroads, recognized not only as a groundbreaking artist, but also as a champion for the voiceless. While he never set out to be a symbolic figure in a societal battle, the role seems to find him. He embraces it with humility and determination, acknowledging that change is never easy, but always necessary. Before long, the changes triggered by that single confrontation in Nova City become evident: new guidelines on negotiation processes, clearer channels for reporting bias, and a broader cultural shift that challenges long-standing norms. Younger musicians, producers, and even executives talk openly about forging an industry that values substance over style, an industry that truly listens. Meanwhile, Zenith Partners confronts a barrage of legal consequences following the National Coalition of Arts and Entertainment Law's investigation. While a few internal allies try to salvage the company's battered reputation, many depart rather than associate themselves with unethical practices. Mark Zenith himself faces calls to step down, his former smug confidence now replaced by strategic silence. Reflecting on these developments, Snoop Dogg feels both gratification and a lingering sense of responsibility. He often confides in his close circle that shining a spotlight on injustice is only the first step. Ensuring that genuine reforms take hold is the next challenge. The moment at AzureSound has evolved into a movement he cannot simply step away from, even if he wanted to. Months after the signing, Snoop stands backstage at a benefit concert in Nova City, scanning the crowd before him. It's a diverse mix, people of different backgrounds, styles, and aspirations, all gathered to celebrate music and equality. Taking the stage, he launches into a freshly composed track. The lyrics evoke the morning he waited outside the building, ignored by those who believed he didn't belong. But rather than bitterness, the song bursts with hope for a better, more inclusive world. Applause booms through the venue when he finishes. In that moment, under the bright lights and with the energy of thousands of fans washing over him, he knows that the day he stood up to the system has not only changed the direction of his own career, but also offered a beacon of possibility for countless others. As time moves on, the story of what happened at AzureSound, how Snoop Dogg confronted prejudice head-on, spreads beyond music circles. Community leaders invoke it as an example of why every voice matters. High school assemblies screen documentary-style videos about the scandal to spark dialogues on fairness, personal authenticity, and the importance of standing one's ground. It is here that the narrative shifts from a single artist's ordeal to a universal message: no institution is too powerful to be held accountable. Individuals, by speaking out, can dismantle even long-entrenched injustice. And while there is no finish line in the quest for equality, each act of resistance, each refusal to be sidelined, pushes society forward. Snoop himself continues to break barriers. With the contract firmly in place, he now has the resources to produce music on his own terms. His tracks climb charts and resonate with a new generation of listeners who see him as proof that authenticity, bolstered by conviction, cannot be silenced. In quiet moments, he remembers stepping out into the drizzly streets of Nova City after signing that contract, feeling simultaneously drained and uplifted. He recalls how the building behind him glowed under the cloudy sky, housing systems of power that had momentarily crumbled under the weight of the truth. That memory stays with him, a reminder that sometimes the smallest acts of standing up for oneself can echo loudest in the halls of power. In the end, the morning Snoop Dogg was forced to wait outside AzureSound Records becomes more than a line in a biography, it becomes a turning point. It marks the day the industry's silence cracked, revealing an underbelly of favoritism and discrimination. It is also the day a single artist's perseverance sparked a call for integrity that continues to reverberate. In the weeks and months following, as the industry grapples with the full impact of the scandal, communities across the country start drawing lessons from Snoop's stand. Local radio stations dedicate segments to discussing issues of bias and representation. Grassroots organizations hold open mic forums for young creators to voice their concerns and ideas about how to move forward, not only in music but also in other areas of creative endeavor. These public conversations often highlight that discrimination doesn't always wear a blatant face, it can hide behind a polite smile or a simple directive to wait over there. By exposing such subtle but corrosive tactics, Snoop's story empowers everyone to question standard protocols, to ask whether they're being fairly treated, and to hold institutions accountable when they are not. An upsurge of mentorship programs also emerges, where established artists volunteer to guide newcomers through the labyrinth of contract negotiations, financial planning, and branding, ensuring that no one is left waiting on the sidelines simply because they do not fit a preconceived mold. Mentors emphasize the importance of authenticity, urging young talents not to let the industry's expectations strip away their individuality. In turn, the music scene flourishes. New genres and styles find platforms they lacked before. Concerts featuring diverse lineups sell out faster than ever, challenging the outdated assumption that only the most polished, narrowly defined acts can succeed. Audiences cheer not only for the music but also for the cultural shift it represents. Through interviews, panel discussions, and social media engagement, Snoop Dogg advocates for a broader understanding of creativity, one that recognizes talent in its rawest forms and does not penalize individuals for defying stereotypes. He champions scholarship funds for underprivileged youth, bridging the gap between potential and opportunity. When asked why he invests so much effort in these causes, he simply replies, "Because no one should have to fight the battles I did just to be heard." Judge Harper Ellis, meanwhile, becomes a frequent keynote speaker at industry conferences. With a reputation for impartiality and tenacity, she champions clearer regulatory standards that protect artists from predatory clauses and prejudicial barriers. Her influence expands, triggering dialogues within other entertainment sectors, film, television, and gaming, about how to ensure fairness for creators of all backgrounds. Zenith Partners, with its tarnished reputation, attempts to rebuild by offering pledges of transparency. A few executives argue for a complete overhaul of the company's culture, while holdouts resist meaningful reform. Shareholders demand accountability, understanding that the public's sentiment is no longer on the side of the status quo. This internal strife becomes a cautionary tale across corporate boardrooms, reminding leaders that they cannot afford to operate in an ethical void. For Snoop Dogg, the signing at AzureSound marks a professional milestone. Collaborations with other big names follow. Venues that once doubted his suitability for large-scale events now clamor for him to perform. But beneath the newfound acclaim, he never forgets the sting of being locked out in that lobby. He channels this memory into every speech, every performance, and every conversation that might shift the needle further toward justice.